So we're just trying to keep it light, very lighthearted on the podcast.
Yeah, super lighthearted.
Super. And so divorce.
Childhood
Let's
trauma
do it.
and go. That's it. That's all our intro is.
Oh, well, Nathan will be very
Dudes, and
excited.
welcome back. Yeah, I love it.
You'll be so excited. So excited for the Sadu. By the way, I taught Jude how to do it.
What, I saw, dude?
He really gets really confused with the finger. So sometimes he'll be like, and it looks like the claw. It's like, grab onto my strong hand. Like, that's what he looks like while he's doing it. He goes, "Sa, dude." That's how he does it. I'm like, so I tried.
I think missed opportunities. I haven't even thought about doing that with Atlas.
I know.
What am I doing?
Well, actually, it was immediately after his Nate's wedding that as soon as the wedding happened, I came home and I was like, "You're going to learn this," and I sent him a video. So Nathan, if you're listening to this, watch that video again, and you can giggle. All right. So we've returned. So we've returned again into your
divorce.
Ears.
Let's talk about it.
So we're just trying to keep it light, very lighthearted on the podcast.
Yeah, super lighthearted.
Super. And so divorce.
Childhood trauma and go.
So how we have gotten to this place from Sadu to divorce is
speaking of segues.
The perfect segue. It's the best way to do it. Just blurt out the topic and just start us off. I like it. I
think it's going to be a common theme moving forward.
I feel like, this is definitely going to be what we do from now on. So everybody's prepared. No one can ever question what we're going to talk about. So how this topic came to be is I was with my mom a couple of weeks ago, and we were at this little Christian retreat deal called the Great Banquet, and she had went through as a guest last fall, but and then she immediately signed up to be a person who's like helping run it in this spring, just a couple weeks ago, and I knew she was doing a talk, but I really didn't know 100% what she was going to be talking about. And it's supposed to be like something powerful, and they've got like topics, things that they want you to talk about or whatever. But she ended
Very
up,
descriptive.
Yes, it's supposed to have some mystery, some intrigue there for people to come to the Great Banquet. I don't know if it's like tons of them though. Like the Catholic have a Crescio. There's like the Great Banquet, Walk to Emmaus, like churches like have like similar but different, and they even have like
still same,
but same, yeah, different but same. And so there's like tons of different churches have all sorts of different parts. Like all the denominations like make their own deal or whatever. But yeah, like the one thing about the Great Banquet is like you eat. Like you gain like 15 pounds. Like I remember going through, and one of the people that were there, like you stand up at the end and you're like just joking around or whatever, and he literally just like, well, clearly you guys don't know about the sin of gluttony because we literally had trays of bacon that came out like twice a day. So it's a good time though. It's a good time. So anyway, so she was in it, and there's a part where you get to like pray her in before her talk, and then she does the talk. You can stay to listen, and then you get a prayer out. Like, so when she's done, you get to pray over her. And so kind of going in, praying, it was a really cool experience, very powerful, just like time to be able to pray over her, and, be able to see like kind of like God using her in like a more profound way. She's like never given a talk in front of people like ever before. So it was pretty cool. And then you're not in it, but you're like behind in this like room with a speaker, so you can just hear it. And so got in there. It was me, father-in-law Jim, and then one of her friends, and we're all just like sitting in there, and you have to be quiet so people don't hear you outside of it. And so she's up there talking. I think it was like maybe like 40 people that she's talking to or whatever. And so she's like talking through it, and she's talking about like her current family, because she she divorced my dad and got remarried, and so she adopted my stepfather's granddaughter, so they're their family, and then she was talking about my family when we were growing up, and
that's more recent too.
Yeah,
right? Her current husband, and like that's within the last 6 years.
I think 8. Yeah, because it was pretty. Well,
but it wasn't like it wasn't like you grew up with her having another family.
No. Yeah. It was more recent. And then they adopted her. They actually officially adopted her this year, like this past year, but they've been raising her for like almost 8 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she was divorced and didn't get remarried for a while until she met my stepfather. So she was like kind of explaining the dynamics of the family and everything like that. And then she went through, because it's like a big part of like processing grief and different things like that, like regrets and things that you're not proud of. And one of the things that came up was like she felt immense guilt for my parents' divorce, and it was not a pretty divorce. Like the amicable, like we just we've grown apart, and then you just like separate and then you go through. It was not that way. It was not good. So like there was a lot of difficulty because my dad was like always working, so he worked like crazy hours, like 3 a.m. till like 3 p.m. So he worked like 12-hour days, worked multiple of those. It wasn't like 3 on and 4 off. It was like 12-hour days, but like 5 or 6 in a row. So he just was constantly working, half alive most of the time. And so when my parents got divorced, for a little while, I was taking care of my brothers. And when my dad was either asleep or, gone. And it created like a weird dynamic because like before I was just like the older brother who would like pick on people and just mess with my brothers all the time. And then one day it was like, and you'll be watching them. Don't let them die. I was like, oh, okay, sure. I was like, this will go well. And so I just became like a little tyrant. And I was just like, you will do all my bidding. It's like playing video games, so they're like mopping the floors.
Yeah,
it's a very much like a Cinderella-esque, except for
my
I was
sisters
like,
used to lock me in my room. They used to take turns holding the door closed so I couldn't get out, and they would watch their soap operas. Yeah. Because they weren't supposed to be watching their soap operas during, especially like in the summertime. My parents would be at work and they'd be watching me, and I didn't want to snitch. Watch, maybe one show that I care about rather than Days of Our Lives. And so then I'd start getting upset and freaking out, and then they'd throw me, they'd chase me around the house, finally catch me, throw me in my room, and then I don't think there's a lock on it. It's not like they could lock it from the outside. So they would literally just like sit there and pull it closed and take turns.
What would they do? Like take turns, shifts with watching this?
Yeah.
So see, that's
if they're watching, they're going to be
traumatic childhood.
Yeah.
Traumatic childhoods. That was you. Yeah. You were just locked in a room while Days of Our Lives was being played. See, everybody's got their trauma.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was not good. It was not good. Me having that much power. And so eventually my aunt came and lived with us and like tried to keep, you know, us somewhat tamed, but she was also very tired. So we kind of just ran rampant still. And, but anyways, like the whole process ended up being a lot like my dad didn't have anybody like around. Like he just pretty much worked his whole life. Like didn't socialize, didn't like, he literally would work, come home, eat with us, go to sleep, work again. Like that was pretty much it. And so when that happened, he like didn't have anybody to talk to. So obviously, as we can tell, I like to talk. And so he just talked to me, which I wouldn't recommend if you're going through a divorce. I wouldn't recommend talking to your children about it because, first of all, we don't understand what you're saying. we're very confused at what this means. And so it like really created this part where like I'm watching my dad not be in a good space, trying to take care of my brothers. And I didn't see my mom very much because my mom like let my dad have full custody. And she just had 2 days a week. And like my dad kind of pushed that too. He's like, you can leave, but like I'm keeping the boys. He's like, I have the financial means to take care of them. You do not. Like I'll take care of them. That's the deal. And so that's how it ended up being. So I didn't get to see my mom very much. And I saw my dad all the time being in pain, like not doing well. So I ended up building a lot of resentment from my mom. I didn't talk to her for almost a year and a half, almost 2 years. Well, no, it's like a year and a half that we didn't talk like one time. Like I just like completely cut ties. And it was through my sister actually that ended up being able to reconnect with my mom again and like be able to kind of think through and stuff like that. But I didn't actually like let anything go. I just kind of was like, all right, like I'm not happy about it, but like you're my mom, whatever. We'll just kind of hang out still. But this is that, I mean, so like we did a much bigger reconnection. Like after I met my wife, we started going back to church, and you know how it goes with like sermons. They just like start slapping you like over the face, like yep. It was like honor thy mother and father, and then like forgiveness, and then like it was just like a series of things where it's just like, all right, I hear you, like I got you, dude, I'll do it. And so ended up it was like right before Easter, so then I invited my mom to Easter, and she hadn't been to church in like forever, and like was really disconnected from God and stuff like that. And so she ended up coming to church and like renewed her faith. We reconnected. It was really good. And ironically, every single time that I've had like a healthy processing of like that awful period, like it's always been God doing it. So like it was going to church, then her going to church, then the great banquet, like all of these things have been like kind of God doing that healing part of like God creating the scenario and the situation for that restoration. And so ironically, because I didn't talk to my mom, and in reality, I hadn't talked to my dad about any of that either. We like just like did it and then just like pretended that never happened, and just like went about our merry way. And the irony of it all is that this year, both things happened this year. I talked to my dad over a bottle of whiskey. We were drinking a bottle of whiskey at my grandma's funeral or burial, and talked to him about the divorce and like all the stuff that happened. And he like, you know, talked to me and was like, I'm so sorry about that and blah, blah, blah. And then my mom did the same thing this year. Like it literally happened within like 5 months, and it happened when I was 11 and I'm 31. So it's been 20 years. And it's the first time we actually had a conversation about it. But both things ended up being because we were talking about God first. And then it like just like came out of this part. And so it was crazy because that, you know, like when you get old, you just like kind of forget about stuff. Like, you know, like it's not that big a deal. Like you kind of talk about it, but it's just like kind of talking about whatever, something that happened in the past that you're like, yeah, it's like, but like it's all good. When I talked to both my dad and my mom, like I like reverted to 11-year-old, and like 11-year-old me was just like bawling like a baby, like just like it's so sad. And we were just like, and then they started crying, so we're like crying together, and we're like just falling over each other. It's just like, and it was the best thing ever. Like it was such a, I'm like, why did we freaking wait 20 years to have this conversation? Like, and it has pretty much for my adult life, like has like made me into the person that I am, like for like so many different things. Like we've talked about, you know, like wanting to be like loyal and faithful in a marriage. Like I'm not getting a divorce. Like Haley would have to be like actively stabbing me in the chest before I would leave. Like there is going to be nothing. And that came from the fact that like I was a part of a divorce and stuff like that. Like it would have to be horrible before I would, because I know the impact of like on kids, to go through it. And like my parents weren't like violent or anything like that, or, you know, like they said things that, you know, maybe were inappropriate, but it wasn't as bad as some people. Like some people are just in horrible, horrible divorces, and it's really bad. But like it still was like resounding impact, like all sorts of different things. And so, you know, I think that's one of the things that, you know, as I was kind of, you know, talking about that part, thinking about the impact and stuff like that, I wanted to kind of bring it up to you to kind of hear what your thoughts were, because, you know, your parents are together, and, you know, you didn't have that, but I know you have had that experience with divorce, you know, around you at different times, and, you know, kind of the complexity of it. You know, what are your thoughts on just the difficulties that come from it?
Yeah, it sucks.
And that's the end.
Thanks for joining us, folks. See you next time. No, yeah, I mean, it's my parents are together, but they both have been through a divorce before they met, and there was times in their marriage that they were close to it, you know, on the verge, but they stuck it out and been together, I don't know, like 30 some odd years. Couldn't tell you the exact amount. Yeah, something like 30, 33. But yeah, I've got two older sisters who have both gone through a divorce recently-ish, within, you know, the last 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. And then, like I said, both my parents, so my mom's, they had very different divorces. My dad married, well, they both married the wrong people, obviously, but my dad married the wrong woman, and like people tried to warn him, I think. Actually, him and I had I didn't really know much about his first marriage. Yeah, I didn't really know much about his first marriage until probably sometime last year. We had somewhat of a conversation about it, and
I bet both of our wives, somebody told them that for us. Like, don't do it.
Are you sure? Are you really sure?
Really? Really?
But yeah, I guess I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was somewhat hasty. And Dad, forgive me if I butcher this, but it was somewhat hasty. He was in a very serious relationship. He was in the Army and in Honduras, and then he got a Dear John letter before, like 3 months or something like that before, or like 3 weeks before he came back. And I think he was planning on proposing to her and everything. And so that kind of tore him up. And then I believe it was shortly after that was this next girl, and it was kind of hasty, and I think both his dad and his brother and like a lot of men in his life are like, it's not too late to turn back, dude. Are you sure?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
But it was very short lived. I couldn't even tell you. Sorry, Dad, I'm not doing you justice here, but yeah, I think it was maybe like under a year, something like that. It was pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then that was it. Kind of, I think. Kind of moved on, and so it wasn't anything like my mother's divorce, where she was with him for years and they had a 14-month-old, and she was 9 months pregnant with my second sister, and she found out he was cheating on her. Yeah, so that was obviously much different, and much more traumatic on her. Now the girls were too young to go through the divorce itself, but obviously growing up, they had that, living with my mom and not hardly ever seeing their biological dad. And that was kind of all through the rest of their lives at that point, though. They hardly ever saw him. And then my dad entered the picture fairly young for them, if I remember correctly, maybe 4 and 5 or something like that. Then my parents got married, had me and my younger sister, and have been together ever since. So, and then my sister's divorces, I mean, it's all different. You know what I mean? I guess it's all different. I don't know necessarily what caused your parents' divorce. I know I'm not going to speak necessarily on behalf of my sisters and their divorce and divorces, but they were both different. They were both different from my parents as well and what they experienced. And, to see my nephews and niece kind of growing up through that, and how my sisters have tried to, I guess, say, protect them from the effects of the divorce to the best of their ability. Obviously, there's going to be lasting effects, but it's all part of divorce, unfortunately. Yeah,
divorce does suck pretty much all the way around.
Yeah,
it's really nice.
Sucks.
It really does. That's the end. But I mean, like, that's the beauty of it. Is like that's the thing that I think is crazy. Like 20 years. And it still was hugely impactful to be able to have that conversation, to be able to do that restoration with my parents. Like, it's just crazy because, like, you just don't realize how much you need it until it's, like, said. And then you're like, oh, my gosh, thank you. Like, you're just like, there's just, like, something. Like, and this is, like pretty much my entire life. All the things where I went wrong, I can trace back to that feeling when my parents got divorced. Like, it was like in my brain, it was like a crack that just, and it was because I was older. Like, my youngest brother was like 4.5. So he was upset and he like wanted his mom for a while, but like his brain adapted to it. Like, he wasn't watching it. He was kind of just confused for a while. And then he just got used to it. Like, he was like, oh, this is just what it's going to be like for my life. So, like, me and my middle brother, we were old enough to recognize, like, this shouldn't be this way. And then, obviously, I was old enough to, like, watch children, sort of, and like, talk to my dad about it. So, like, it was much more, like, impactful within my mind. But I was talking to my wife about it, and I was just like, literally, like, everything that I have struggled with in my life in some form or fashion, whether it was like anxiety, struggle with like control. Like, that's one thing that, like, my wife will say is like, you are a control freak. Like, I try to control things like to the best of my ability, like with so many different things. The reason why I'm somewhat organized. It's not because I'm like, I just want to be really well organized. It's because I'm trying to control my life to a certain extent. And it all comes from like the fact that I felt like I was out of control during that time. Like, it's insane how much of my life and the things that I've struggled with, like I can tie back into that space. And so not that it fixes like everything, that restoration, but it does give like a part to be able to like tie in where it's like, yeah, that sucked, but like get to see the brokenness and then see it restored. So it becomes this part where it's like, becomes more of like a scar, versus just like an open wound that's just like sitting there. And so like we've kind of talked about that, like, pornography came out of that, like, just trying to find something to like numb out, and different things like that. Like my anxiety was really bad. Feeling like I had to do everything right, but like sucking at it because I was 12, like trying to take care of the house, but it looks like just a disheveled mess because it was a 12-year-old cleaning. Just push it all into the closet, shut the door. It's like, that's how it was. And so like, it was this weird feeling like, through that whole time. And the funny thing is like all my friends, like nobody knew like what was going on. And a lot of my friends was going through divorces as well. Like they were just like, oh, that's normal. I'm like, yeah, like your whole family unit's just crumbling under you. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's sad. It's a sad reality, but it has become normal.
Yeah. Like it's crazy to me that actually you, like your parents are together, my wife's parents are together.
Yeah, my in-laws are split up. That's another divorce that they actually split up after my wife and I got married. So did experience that, and my wife going through it, but it was obvious. I mean, it was different because we were young adults, but we were adults nonetheless.
Yeah.
Going through it rather than kids.
It still sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Complicates everything. Like, it's like one of those things, like when you're a kid, you're like, well, I get 2 Christmases. You're like, yes, that makes up for your family being separated. You're just like, that makes it okay. You're like, no, not quite. But yeah, so it's just crazy to me. Like now I get to like bring context to that and like talk about that, especially mostly with my wife. Like when I get into a time where like I'm struggling with being controlling, like I can in my brain like go back and be like, hey, that was from that time, helping myself be like, that's not what this is. Like you are fine. Like there's nothing like earth shattering gonna happen, because a lot of times when I'm feeling that anxiety or an experience like that, it's that same feeling. But there's no reason to feel that feeling. Like I'm an adult, this will be fine. But like in my brain, like it like goes like beep, and it goes like back to 12, and the world's crumbling down upon me. So it's just nice to be able to have something to be able to talk through, like as that's happening, to kind of even just in my brain, just be like, oh yeah, that's not what this is, and then I like hop back a lot better. And especially since the restoration with my parents, it's like night and day difference. Because obviously I knew those things before, and I knew that that's what I should do. But now it's like astronomically different how I work through that part. And so it's just nice to have context to things within my mind.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So I mean, like that's the thing, is like I'm hopeful that people who are going through that or have gone through that, sometimes you don't get that ability to restore. Like some people are not in a good space to do so. But man, don't matter what time you do it, it is good stuff to be able to have that part. And that's the nice thing, is I think, I was talking to a client the other day of just, you're going to screw up your kids somehow. Like it's just going to happen. Like you're a sinner, you're going to screw up your kids. But if you're healthy enough, you can restore that part on the back end. Like that's the thing that you can do. You can't be perfect, but you can restore things. And I think that's, something that I'm recognizing the need, and I'm trying to be mindful of with like my boys, is being able to restore things when I like get too angry, or say something that is just kind of off the cuff and not refined or whatever. Is making sure like I go back and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry about that. How are you feeling? What's going on for you? And that's something that I struggle with because I did not get that when I was young. Like I didn't really have a great example because my dad just wasn't around. Like,
Yeah.
it was me being a tyrant. That was my example of me being like, do everything I say, or I'll give you, noogies and spit on you. That's what I was doing. So I don't have a great example for that. So that's been a struggle as I've been raising my boys. Like I'll get frustrated and I'll like get angry and I'll not think like, oh, hey, I need to restore this. Like I need to make this right. I'll just be like, all right, moving on. And then we just go to the next thing. And so that's something that has been like really on my mind lately is making time and effort to do those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, that makes sense. I mean, even I try, although I didn't go through a divorce with my parents, I try and take what my parents did, like what I believe they did right and wrong, raising us and adjust accordingly with my kids and try and remind myself. And sometimes I fall into the same traps that they did because my child is me and I am my father. And so sometimes
identical.
Tempers will spike, but I think I do, especially lately, do a much better job of kind of keeping myself in check. Or if I do, if I do go over the top, then being sure that I, sit them down and apologize and talk about what happened and that sort of thing. I say that because it makes sense that what you went through as a child and you happen to go through a divorce is going to translate into how you are a parent. I do that as well. So I think it's natural.
Yeah. And, again, I think it's just something that it's nice to be aware of. Like it's really good, I think, to be aware of the things you suck at. And so you can actually like try to create some change within your space, and specifically for your kids, try to create some change so that they can see it. They can watch you suck and they can watch you get better. Yep. Like that's something that I think is so important for us, specifically as dads, just to try to model that aspect of, there's a couple things. I think it was it was a sermon series. Who was it by? Matt Chandler. And it was an old one that I saw a couple years ago. And it was about men being fathers was one, and then men being husbands was another. And the challenges in that space was like how to be Christ to your wife, how to be Christ to your children. Yeah. And it's just so crazy because it's so astronomically different than what comes natural, and then what like self-sacrifice servanthood is another thing that I think is something that's difficult specifically for me, because naturally I kind of process through of like, okay, what's the best idea? And obviously the best idea is my idea. So like it literally is but like I have to like have such a hard conversation with myself because in my brain, like that's how it always was. Of like, and again, it kind of derives from the divorce, where it was like I had to figure things out, so it was my way. Period. Like, and that was just what it was. So obviously, that doesn't work very well when you're in a marriage of just being like, this is what we're doing. That's the end. And so that's been something
That works
my
out
wife.
well with my wife. I don't see
Oh,
that's-
it
that's
does.
an issue.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good.
totally.
I was like, never could that happen. That's the thing. I think God gave me. She's not even that strong-willed, but a strong-willed woman to be like, yeah, no, I'm gonna check you.
she's definitely strong-willed.
Yeah, she's like she's not
her and her sister, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I mean, she's very, very strong-willed, and which is great. She's very independent, very capable on her own, sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she pretty
so-
much runs most of our life.
Well,
Like,
and for me personally, like Caitlin she's strong-willed, but in a different way, in the sense that like I would say she's more dependent, I think, which like works for me. Like for me, I'm chaos. When we first met, I was pure chaos, and so
What? No.
I needed that. I needed somebody who depended on me. You know what I mean? Like to get myself into shape. And she also came with structure. So
Yeah.
she had the structure. She was
a
more
structure to your chaos.
stable. Yeah, more stable and down to earth, and very, I had to have a schedule, that sort of thing. And that's what I needed. I needed someone who was dependent on me to an extent, to kind of force me to have that sense of responsibility. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because like so like that was something that was needed for you. I needed the check. I need someone who would be like, no, like we're not going to do that, because she doesn't do that very often. Like she usually lets me kind of run the show, in many aspects, but like sometimes she'll be like, nope. And I think God was like, yeah, you're going to need someone who can say no and be like, nah, yeah, that's like, it's a real no. It's not like a fake no. It's like, when I say no, it comes with like some oomph. Like, I'll fight. And I'm like, God was like, yep, you need somebody who's going to fight. And it has, like, it helped me kind of become more balanced in areas where I don't think I would have if I had someone who didn't like put that fight back and have some independence. And so it's been helpful. Ironically, yeah, like we talked about in episode 1, it's like our wives have created the men we have become through God. Like God was like, I'm going to handcraft you, ladies, to be able to create better men. Because most of the reasons why I've become better is due to me wanting to do good for my wife. Like, it wasn't like my wife was like, you have to be good or I won't be around. It's because I was like, it made me want to be a better person.
yeah, for sure.
And so it ended up working out a lot. Like, I've reaped many rewards from that. Like, coming from where we started to where we are now, it has been extremely beneficial. And, again, I think it's going to be so crazy to see where we're at in like 20 years with our kids grown, and like just to see how much like things have changed from now to then and how we deal with things. Because I feel like to a certain extent, again, if you're maturing, you're going to end up having like a lot of growth, like emotional growth specifically. Obviously you learn crap and stuff, but like,
obviously you've learned crap and stuff.
Obviously, but the emotional growth is where I feel like, because like when when my dad was raising us versus like how he acts to my boys, it's insanely different. I'm like, what? You just let him do that? Like, I would have died. You would have taken me outside and killed me if I would have done that. And you're just like, it's okay. I love you. I was like, what? It's like, I get a little upset here. I'm like, what's happening? I'm like, I need, bad grandpa to come out here and start helping me discipline these boys instead of acting like these kids are fine. They're like setting fire to the house. He's like, oh, boys will be boys. I'm like that is not true. I was like, we set fire to things in your bathroom. You didn't think it was just boys will be boys. We got grounded, almost killed. Like, so it's just so funny. I'm like, it's going to be so crazy from where we are now to when we're having grandchildren, and the differences. I mean,
for sure.
I'll be fully bald with you, and we'll have touch of gray in our beard.
Touch of gray in our beard.
and we'll
for
be
yourself.
at that. First of all, it's coming for you. If you lost your hair, your gray is coming.
No,
And your dad has a luscious gray beard.
I've got no hair to go gray.
The beard goes too. I've already got some gray.
I'd rather have hair to go gray.
Well, it's not in the cards for either of us, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I think this is going to be a short one this eve.
I know. I think it was a good one.
Yeah.
Good, short, and sweet. So,
Yeah.
all over the place. It was good.
Talk about segues. This is the end.
This is it.
Yeah, I'm just going to make a habit of that where it's just like zero segue whatsoever, just straight into
Just right into it. It'll be the most abrupt, abrasive.
Welcome to the podcast. Divorce. Let's talk about it. I'm done talking about divorce. See ya. Just call it a night.
You're like the character off of oh gosh, why can't I think of it? Guardians of the Galaxy. Dude who doesn't
Drax.
like it. Yes, who doesn't understand any metaphors or like any sarcasm. Just like, we're done. Beep.
Yep.
And that's the end. I like it. I say we do it.
There you go.
All right. We finished the podcast and we'll be back next time.
Maybe we will. If you've made it this far,
Good on you.
yeah, we appreciate you.
We really do. Stick with us.
If you made it this far, it's because your friends or family and we forced you to. So
exactly.
You're welcome.
We annoyingly said things to you over and over again until we got you to subscribe. All right. Well, that's the end. Goodbye.